This is going to be an interesting one. I feel that I should apologise up front. I'll certainly apologise about a quarter of the way in. We live in a multicultural world. What this week has taught us is that we live with a lot of cultures. And we're going to start off with a little bit of audience participation. It occurred to me that there are lots of different types of people in the world. And I wonder if you would like to sort of shout out some different types of people that you think might satisfy these categories. Anybody just... Sorry? You see, there are this many types of people in the world. Oh, going the wrong way. There are those that understand binary. And there are those that don't. Okay, let's have a slightly easier one. There are two types of people in the world. Anyone want to have a go at this one? There are two types of people in the world. No, two types, two. Not the third type, not the second type. There are two types of people in the world, yeah.
Smart ones and not so smart?
No. No. Okay. There are those that can interpolate from incomplete data. There are two types of people in the world. I'll give you a clue for this one. Let's talk a little bit about optimism. There are two types of people in the world. There are people... Oh, I can use this, can't I? There are people that would look at this and think of it as being half empty. There are people that would look at this. It's sad that it's half empty. There are people that would look at this and see it as half full. These are the happy people. There is a happy person looking at a glass that is half full. Now, for me, the classic example of optimism is written in your program today. Your program says evening entertainment. Now, it is certainly the evening. So this is at least half wrong. Or half wrong. We will find out. Don't think of it as entertainment. Think of it as an evening infomercial. What's going to happen is you're going to have to sit through 25 or 30 minutes of something that's quite dull. And then at the end there will be an opportunity to spend money. So, sorry? Irritatement. Yes, I like that. We're going to be irritainmented at our confuser meeting. Okay, so the full title for this is To Get Your Geek On with John Daintree as a devil of a time with JSON and Databinding. So we need to talk about JSON. Not this chap. Although we probably should. He's been at the back of the room for 12 hours a day for a couple of days doing sterling work. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about this stuff, this JSON, which is sometimes called a JavaScript object notation. And it's a format that uses human readable text to transfer stuff from somewhere to somewhere else. Human readable text such as this, it defines a transport mechanism for the definitions of objects. And objects are delimited with curly braces. And inside an object, name value pairs are indicated by, or separated by colon, the name to the left, the value to the right. And we see that throughout this thing. Here we have an address, the value of which is also an object, and so it also contains name value pairs. Okay, JSON can also describe arrays which are delimited with square brackets. And inside an array we can have an array of objects which has got name value pairs and things within it. Now JSON is used a lot on the internet. This is our Facebook page. And if you go to the Facebook developer site, okay, you can visit their Graph API Explorer thing. Okay, you can get one of these unique tokens that you get when you log in. You can then find the ID of what you are interested in. You can press the button and you can get the JSON for the place that you've asked about. And in this instance, the place that we've asked about is Dialog APL, and some of the JSON that we got back was the JSON for this little post that we put there. And our JSON contains that name-value pair. It contains a name-value pair of the time that it was created and the value, and also something else. And this little value here is a part of a URL that we subsequently use to get even more JSON to find out even more about this Facebook feed. Okay. And there's a bunch of other things we can do with this JSON, all of which are frankly very, very tedious. There are much better things that we could do with our time than talk about endless amounts. This would be wasting our time, and not in a fun way. The way I waste my time is I run around killing things. So if you end up with a bug in your APL interpreter, and it's in anything that I've been anywhere near, the chances are it's because I was awake at 4 o'clock in the morning, running around, killing things, and generally being violent and mental. This is a game called Diablo 3. I play this a lot, I enjoy it. Basically, the idea is to run around killing things. The more things you kill, the better you feel. I don't know, it's something like that. But you run around, you kill things. The things that you kill drop gold, they drop things that you can pick up. They drop armor and they drop weapons. So you can get stronger and faster, and you can get more violent, which means you can kill things faster, and you can get more gold and more armor and more weapons, and so you can end up playing this thing till 5 o'clock in the morning, running around killing things. When you've run around and you've killed enough things, you go and visit this charming little chap here. His name is, I don't know, it escapes me. I'm not much at paying attention to detail. But he gives you these little containers, and when you pop them open, what you get is even more stuff that you have to deal with, and maybe some gold and other bits and pieces of stuff. And you can do all sorts of things with it. You can keep it, you can salvage it, and change it to things that you can then recycle for other bits and pieces of stuff. Now it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and you've got work in an hour. There's stuff that you don't know what it is, and you have to identify it and go through the process. Here's a bit of jewelry that we've picked up. And here's some gems as well that we can use, and they can be used to augment our weapons and our armor so that we can become stronger and faster, and we can run around and kill things even faster and get more money. And it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and you really got to think about going to work. But this bling is good. Bling is important to today's man-on-the-street barbarians. So, if you're really lucky when you're running around killing things, you come across one of these little goblin chaps. I got into trouble the other day talking about goblins in a bar. It was all on purpose. Where is she? Where's Karen? She gave me such grief. No, it was all on purpose. It was all setting the scene. Here's a little goblin chap, and you'll notice that this guy's a thing called, he's died already. He was called the Gilded Baron, and he carried a bunch of gold around. And if you kill him, you get quite a lot of gold building up, 25 million gold things that you pick up from this guy. Okay, but one thing about him is that every now and again, he pops up one of these little portals. Okay, normally this portal disappears really, really quickly. But if you're exceptionally lucky, and not only have you met the goblin and defeated him, sometimes that little portal stays open after he dies, and you can go through it, and you end up in the vault. Now, the vault is a mysterious, wonderful place. Vast amounts of gold. In the backstory, if you can be bothered to read any of that, frankly, it's nonsense. It's all about killing things. It's not about reading the backstory. This is where all those goblins go. They've been running around, they've been stealing stuff, they've been picking up the stuff that you leave behind, like, I don't know, crazy medieval wombles, I suppose. And they go here, and this is where they deposit it. So you can run around in here for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. You can pick up maybe 150 million gold things, coins, let's call them coins. And you can pick up more stuff, stronger armor, stronger weapons. You can get stronger and more powerful and faster, so you can kill things at an even more increased rate. And it's frightfully exciting. And now it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and you think, I might as well take the day off sick and sit here. So, Right, now here we have another cutscene. This is Diablo. This is the anti-hero of the piece. This is Diablo, the big guy at the end, the big boss at the end of the game. You've played for, 6 months, you finally get to this guy, you defeat him, you think you've got to the end of the game, fantastic. And then they download a patch to your machine and you've got another whole act of terror and carnage to play your way through. This is Diablo. You kill him, he dies in a great blaze of glory, and you get stuff that you can then recycle, or you can just keep it. If you're anything like me, you just keep this stuff forever. And it just builds up, and every now and again you think, I've got no room, nowhere to put anything, I better throw some stuff out. And it's pretty much, in almost every aspect then, just like real life. So we've run around, we've killed lots of things, we've made some gold, we've picked up all sorts of nice bits of armour and goodness, and all is good with the world. So anyway, so this is the chap that's been running around wreaking all the havoc and, causing all of the carnage. Now his name is a very good, powerful, awe-inspiring, it invokes that feeling of dread and terror and, well, he's called John, isn't he? Now, he's a character of a type of a barbarian, so he's barbaric, he does all that stuff, he runs around, he kills things, he doesn't go to work because he's too busy running around killing people. He's a level 70, that means he's pretty much at the top level of Diablo, the highest rank of player that you can get to. He's been through the game, he's killed Diablo probably 60 or 70 times at all the difficulty levels. He's killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent monsters as he's been running around all of those scenes that we've seen before. Okay, he's had a jam-packed life. He's killed, he's run through, he's done everything. He's 3.5 years old. He's had a busy life. Now, of course, when you're 3.5 years old, you're 3.5 years old. You're not 3 years old. Someone says to you, how old are you? You go, I'm 3. No, I'm 3.5. That half is important. So there he is. So he's, where is he? Okay, so there he is. So he runs around, and every now and again he comes back to this little camp, which is a convenient, resort, that would be refuge where he can rest, and he can investigate, he can look to see what he's got in his stash. And then somewhere over here there's a big chest where you can keep even more stuff that you really don't want to throw away, because one day, we all know, it'll come in useful. Okay, well let's take a closer look then at the stuff that he's wearing. So he's got various bits of armour attached to various parts of his body. He's got his big sword here. He's got trinkets. He's got a necklace on. Okay, less said about that, the better. He's wearing rings, and each of these things have got names and attributes and locations where they can be worn. And it's all about getting new items. I've picked up a stronger sword. That's fantastic. And now I don't need to go into work till Thursday next week. It's brilliant. What's this got to do with anything? What has this got to do with us as APL programmers, other than it's a good excuse for not coming into work for a few days? Next time I really will be ill, I promise. The point is that all this information about what the guy's wearing, what weapons he's got, what bling he's wearing, we can get at, and it's reported back to us as JSON. What we can do is we can go to the Blizzard Entertainment website, and they assure us that getting started is not only easy, but it's free. We like free. We might have 8 billion gold things in our virtual Diablo account. Doesn't matter. It's free. We like free. Not only is it free, it's easy. You can also build epic experiences. Not your run-of-the-mill good experience. Oh, no. We're not interested in good. We're not interested in great. We only want epic experiences. So what you do is you go here, you register for an account, and you get given one of these unique keys, like we saw with Facebook. Same sort of deal. You can then go to their online test site, okay, where you're allowed to make 100 calls per second. We're probably going to be okay with that. 36,000 calls per hour. Okay, it's probably asking for quite a lot of data. You can experiment with this online. You can type in your information. This is my... Okay, yeah, sorry, that's my app key that we got when we logged in. This is what they call a battle tag. It's a very computer geeky gamey way of... It's a login name, really. Okay, but what you can do is once you've done that, you can type in, and it returns in JSON information about your character and your status within the game. If we want to retrieve that information in APL, okay, then here we have a function that pretty much does exactly that. It's got the same API key in there, that thing that they gave us when we logged in. And it makes some .NET calls, and at the end it returns a stream of characters that represent the JSON data. So now, I think possibly for the only time, we might as well open up a bit of a session, have a bit of a look around. Okay, so I'll keep this demo bit as short as possible. So I'm going to load my workspace. I'm going to switch boxing on. I'm going to then call that getJSON function, and I'm going to I'm going to get the JSON corresponding to my battle tag, my login name. I mean, let's call it what it is. And we get back this JSON. Oh, and look, we still have internet. Wonders will never... Yeah. Okay, so we get back 6,800 characters. If we look at that in an editor that knows about JSON, so this is literally the text that's come back, but it's been syntax colored and it's been formatted, and we've got these nice little foldy things in it. Okay, here's our heroes, and look, we've got this hero here. If I do that, okay, so he's called John, he's a barbarian, all the things I told you about. Level 70. This Paragon level is when they ran out of levels at 70, they, rather than going to 71, 72, 73, they started introducing this completely separate additional level of Paragons. And it takes about, I don't know, a good afternoon off work to get one of those extra points. So what we have then in Dialog, okay, is we have this IBeam, 7159 IBeam, which takes that JSON and converts it into something which may or may not be of an easier format for us to deal with. The left argument of 1 gives us a matrix back, very much like the result we get from Quad XML when we take a stream of XML and we want to convert it into an APL array. It's a Richard, it's a depth 1 array where you've got oh, I don't know. I've never had the energy to parse this with XML, and I'm not about to get into it with JSON. It gets worse if we use the left argument of, oh, there's the first 10 elements, which are, again, the things that we saw. It's battle tag, blah, 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 Paragon level, and an indication of the heroes that we have. And the left argument of 2 to that IBeam also gives us a matrix, but it's now more deeply nested. But I'm not interested in parsing that either. I've never been able to get my head around that one either. If we use a left argument of 0, then what we get back is an object that's got names in it. And that's what I like. I mean, I know, and from what I said this afternoon, sometimes, having a good old matrix with columns and rows is exactly what you want, especially when all of your data is all the same. In this case, at the moment, we've got no idea what's in here. Isn't it nice that if we get something that gives us a way of finding out nice and easily what's in there? So, for example, in the prof then is an object that I've got, which has been created from that JSON that was returned. And in there is a field called heroes, which tells me that there are 14 heroes associated with that account. Heroes, characters, barbarians, all sorts of things. The first one, okay, has got a number of properties associated with it. This one at the bottom comes back as a mangled name because actually within the name itself there's an APL character that we can't allow in a name, so we mangle that up so it's completely impenetrable to you. Now here's an interesting thing, because I say interesting, you probably don't care in the slightest. Time played for my barbarian character will come back as 1 because it's all been done relative to the most played character. I'm pretty sure that some time ago it reported it in days. Well, in my case, it wasn't even days. It would have been months, weeks, days, hours, and seconds, and so on. Okay, so my first hero is my guy called John. And there he is. His name's John. He's a barbarian. He's level 70. And he's got this ID. And this ID we can use to drill even further down. So what we're saying now is from the same profile, I now want to get information about the hero with that particular ID. And we'll stick that in John JSON, which is 33,000 characters. We could look at that. In fact, we will look at that in the editor, because what we can see in here is items. And items is all of that stuff that he's wearing and that he's holding and that he's running around with. And that's the sort of information that we saw actually in the game in that box thing. And most importantly, we can convert that into an object as well, get the name out and so on. We can find out what he's wearing on his legs. We can find out the name of the thing that he's wearing on his legs. We can find out all of the information about what he's wearing on every part of his body. And, most importantly, we find out that he's not dead. So this is all very well and good. Oh, not there. But what are we going to do with it? Okay, well, we're going to play that sort of game that I played this afternoon with the data binding. We can build a GUI that shows this information off. So what I've got here is just a definition of a window in the XAML, nothing in it. It specifies its width and height. And here is the function that I showed you this afternoon. Exactly the same thing. To read the XAML, create a window, convert the character, the namespace object that we want to give it into a data context, and show that in the dialog box. And of course we just get an empty window because we haven't specified any additional content. If we say, okay, well I'll put a list box in my window and I will associate each of the items in my list box with the name of an item that the character is wearing, then we get something that we're familiar with seeing in a GUI application. A list box containing a list of names. Not terribly exciting. It's not really, it's not exciting. If we apply at least a modicum of the knowledge of anatomy to this, and we use an object called a canvas, which allows us to position things by position and give them a specific size, what we can do is we can create a button for each of these items, and we end up with something that we may or may not think now, well, I can sort of, if I squint and maybe close my eyes and ignore everything, sort of maybe it looks a little bit like a body. Now, this is the bit where I said the front row might be at a disadvantage. And if they had read their program, they might have decided to have sat somewhere where at least things were going to be a little bit blurry. That's now this is the bit where, when you back in the day you used to play adventure games, and depending on what decision you made at one point, the game would take a completely different turn and you'd end up doing a completely different thing. Sorry? Oh, Let's Suit Larry. He might have been one of those. Yeah, I mean, there was a number of those. But anyway, now I'm wishing that I'd implemented that, because this is strictly straight line stuff. Okay, you're going to get what you're going to get, and you people, you might want to close your eyes at least. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to provide something a bit more interesting as a background to that thing than just a white screen. Okay, and we might go off and we might hire a graphic designer and we say, go and produce some sort of nice sort of background for our window where we're going to display this stuff. So he'll go away, he'll give you a nice little JPEG, and you'll put that on your window and you'll think, well, that's great, that's a million times better. But you might think, no, you know what, we need to flesh this out a little bit, we need to make this a little bit more realistic. So he goes away and he thinks about it and he comes back and he says, oh, okay, well, how about something like that? And then you think, yeah, but it's still not quite real enough. I'm really regretting this now. So he goes off and he says, you know what, I think I saw some pictures of I saw some pictures of somebody on the internet. It's fine, completely anonymous. His eyes have been censored. You'll not know who he is. And so he does that, and he starts generating sort of, ever-increasing pictures of ever-increasing quality of maybe suggested backgrounds that he might choose to use. And when at any point, who's still got their eyes open? Okay, so this can get increasingly real. There's one more level of realism. Are we up for it? Because I hear cries of no. Right, I'll keep it. But so anyway, so it looks like this. And who in their right minds pose for a photograph like that? It's insane. Not only, I'm not saying I don't know who this person is. It doesn't bring to mind anybody I know. But fortunately, we'll never know because he's been very cleverly, I think you'll find, disguised. Okay, so this is good, but maybe we need a little bit of cartoon in there as well, just to, I don't know, take some of the pain away, I suppose. And maybe we just lose him completely now because he has served his purpose and made me wish I hadn't introduced it at all. So now we've got this nice little background. Okay, now. If you did have your eyes closed, now is a perfect time to open them again. So now what we can do is we can take that image and use that as the background for our window. Okay, and at this point I should probably just point out quickly where that background came from because it's sort of interesting. We'll nip back very quickly to the API, and this I think will be the last time until the very, very end. When we have our character John, we can retrieve his class and his gender. He's a barbarian, I guess 0 means male, clearly. From that, okay, well, in fact, what we had in the XAML, we had a data-bound reference to this thing called background. Now, at the moment, it doesn't exist. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is run a little function called fixItems, which runs around. And one of the things it's going to do is it's going to put a value called background in the object so that we can use that. But it's also going to download other bits and pieces of JSON and fix up a few other little bits of the pieces of the data which aren't exactly in a form that makes it easy for us to use. So we'll do that, and it's now going to go off to the internet, assuming we've got some. Each of these little colons here is a successful call to get some JSON, and we've got the result back. Where we see the dots is because what we've done is we're actually caching some JSON as well. So the dot means I didn't need to get anything because I've already got it. Now, of course, though, what that means is we can look at john.background and we now have a full reference to a URL. Now, it was Ray this afternoon who pointed out that you can right-click on this and open link. What he didn't illustrate was that if you do Control-click, then that will open that up in the browser as well, which is a nice little thing that you can do from the session. So that's where we've got that background from, and it looks like that. So if we put now our anatomically correct buttons over our image, we can sort of see now it's got a bit more context and it's a bit more interesting. But still not particularly useful. Let's do something else. Rather than just using a button with some text in it, let's create a template that we're going to use on all of our buttons. Okay, and we'll call it item image. And all it is, oh yeah, and for reasons of common decency, we'll do his legs first. Here's our image. It just contains a grid, not a data grid, but just one of those grid layout things that allows you to specify things in a number of rows and a number of columns. And the only thing we have in there is an image which is data bound to a thing called icon URL in the item that we're interested in. So if we apply that to the items.legs, then what we get is a nice little bitmap covering the man's leg parts, which is handy. Then, of course, we can extend this, and for each of the places where we've got other items that the guy's wearing, we can add a new button on our canvas, data bound to the appropriate thing. And we get images now of everything that the guy is wearing, which is an improvement. So what we have there then, for each of these items, we have a grid that contains just the image object. Good thing about grids, though, is that if you add more than one item to the same cell in a grid, they just overlay each other. which means that we can build up a more complex image for each of those items. If we start off just with a border with a background around it, sorry, not a background around it, but with a frame, but then we add a bitmap as its background, and again, all of this information that we're putting in the GUI here is data bound coming out from that one John object. Then we get something like that. Then if we put our image back in again, then we get something that's got a nice colourful background, and our image is now lifted out from the background of our window. All of this stuff is coming from the data binding. All of the images that we see are all of the format like the background was, where they're all coming from the Blizzard website. There's no images cached on our machine. And all of this time as well, of course, I'm not writing any new APL code. We've got our data. All we're doing is writing the user interface. So if we apply that now to all of our places, then we're building up a more and more detailed view of what's going on. Let's now add some labels. So for each of our items, we're going to associate and create a label that's going to include a couple of things. It's going to include its name and also an attribute that this object has. Okay, in this case, we're going to pick one of the primary attributes, one of the most significant things, that this thing has. We're going to put these in a stack panel, which by default means they're going to be vertically aligned above each other. And we do that, and we add an item label for everywhere where we've got one of these buttons. And then we get these labels. Even the information about what color we should draw these in is coming out of the data binding, which has come from the object, which has come from the JSON that we downloaded right at the beginning. Moving on, if we add some polylines between our labels and our items, then we can get these lines, again, just adding the detail to our GUI display of our Diablo character. The eagle-eyed amongst you, if you've got your eyes open again, will notice there's a mistake here. This one's left-aligned and it should be right-aligned. I fixed that in the live code. Okay, but what about the bling? Bling's important. Didn't I say bling is important to today's Man About Town Barbarian? Okay, when you have your jewelry, you can significantly improve your stats. You can become stronger, so you can hit harder, have more time off work. You can have more life. That's not coming up very well. If you put a purple gem, what's a purple gem? It's amethyst? Yeah? Put an amethyst in your helmet, you get 23% extra life straight away. You live 23% longer. Only it was that easy. But if we go back then to our grid, where we have our border and our background image and our icon, what we can do here is we can add like an items control, which is essentially a list box. But if we data bind that to the sockets on an object, then what we get is the appropriate number of empty sockets over our item. And if we do the same thing with, and what's interesting about this, I say interesting, is that these little sockets, they're not just single bitmaps that we get. We have to get a little bit cleverer here. This little socket that we see here is actually just a little corner of a bigger bitmap that we get that's downloaded to us. But it's okay, it's not a problem. We can deal with it all with the data binding and just make sure that we just show that little circle bit, which is what we want. And then, of course, we can do the same thing. We can overlay the gems on top of the sockets so that it looks like we've now got sockets that contain gems. And, of course, if we had 3 sockets but only 2 gems, then we'd just get the empty socket showing through underneath. And we might see that later. Okay. Right. And then, of course, the same thing holds true for weapons. We can add a socket to a weapon. We can add a gem into a socket in a weapon. And weapons can also have this additional property, which is their elemental damage. They might be especially imbued with fire or with poison or with something else. And there's a bitmap you can have that you can add to your object, which shows that information off. Maybe if let's look at this a little bit. If we get quite creative and run a little bit of video, we can actually rotate this thing in 3D space and have a look to see how these different layers are affecting how this thing looks and how it's built up. Which is kind of cool. Okay, so we can then add all of our bling to all of our items by just applying that same template to all of the items that we've already got. Oh, and we'll add some labels at the top just so that we know who we're talking about. Okay, so gems are important. They make your things stronger. They make your things better. Of course, all the things have attributes all of their own anyway before we started adding gems and things to them. For example, the helmet that I'm wearing here, if we look at the quite deep object hierarchy that's going on here, but all of which has been generated for us by the I-beam that converted it from the JSON, we can see that the item that is on my head, or his head, has got a number of attributes which add various things to them. Now, we haven't really got enough room to display those on the form. Okay, but what we can do maybe is display them in a tooltip. Okay, so if we define a tooltip object with, at the moment, just a text block in it, then we can get the fairly standard tooltip behavior. And when we wobble our mouse over our stuff, we get our little tooltip pop up. And then we can go through the same sort of game that we've been through with extending our GUI, and we can just make our tooltip bigger, more detailed, stronger, longer, faster, and we could just add all of that useful information with various combinations of stack panels and wrap panels, so we can get a really useful tooltip. And then if we want to get really creative, we can, a lot of these things say like, plus X amount of health, plus X amount of strength, blah, blah, blah. If we wanted to get really creative, and this is the first time now that I'm going to need to write some new APL code, okay, we can actually use we've added a few extra bits and pieces to this. If we want to pick out the colors, we can write a bit of APL code that gets called every time this tooltip is about to be displayed, and it gets given the string, and the APL code can generate the correct formatting for that. And all it does for each of these items is that it just returns some oldie-worldy, styly, rich text format text, which the control here knows how to display. Okay, so all of that stuff there that we had, with the exception of that messing about with the numbers and the text at the end, no additional APL code required at all. All we're doing is data binding to an admittedly quite complicated object hierarchy. Let's just extend that one stage further, and then we're pretty much done with our app. I pointed out it's not a one-man army. I have 14 heroes associated with my account. Wouldn't it be nice if we could switch between those in the display? So what we'll do is we'll create a list box, okay, which is associated with, if you remember, we started off with a thing called prof, which had that array of heroes in it. So now our form is not going to be bound just to one object, but it's going to be bound to the entire profile. And we're going to have a list box that is bound to the heroes vector of that entire profile. We are going to specify that each of the items should look like this thumbnail, which has an image and two pieces of text in it. We are going to data bind our canvas, which is all of this bit here, with whatever item happens to be selected in our list box. And finally, we're just going to put an edit field at the top to allow us to change what profile we're looking at dynamically as well. So if we do that, we end up with this thing where we have our list box at the top, where we have the same thumbnail being used for each item in the list box. And again, interestingly here, each of those is just a snippet of a larger bitmap. And then at the top there, we have a edit field which allows us to add in a new profile, a new set of heroes that we want to look at. Okay. So we need to talk about JSON just one more time. Not this stuff. The man at the back of the room. The man at the back of the room, you know him as Jason. I know him as Mo Hero. Jason knows how to play the game. So, if we take our user interface and we change our login profile at the top, swap in JSONs, then what we get is we get all of JSON's stuff. Well, again, the only code we've needed to write is the little bit, the callback handler on that says, go and load the new profile JSON, create the new object from that using the I-beam, and then all the GUI updates independently. So let's have a look at it in real time. So what I'm going to do is I've got a function called showAll, which will show all the characters for a single profile, and we give it as the left argument the XAML that we want it to use to display. Okay, we can see we get some colons through. We get a lot of dots because I've already loaded some of this stuff before for some of the heroes. So we do that, and then we get our real application. Takes a moment maybe for the network to catch up to get all the images, but there we go, we're in. So what we can do is we can click through all of John's heroes, and we get all of the information. No APL code running as we click through this stuff. It's all just picking out that stuff from the object that we created from the iBeam that we got from the JSON. We can click through, and we can see all the information about all the characters that are going on. Network's a little bit slow, but again, it's kind of nice to know that, again, just to verify that I've got no bitmaps on the machine. All of the images that you're seeing on this form are coming down on the fly, on demand, whenever the WPF stuff on underneath decides it needs to display an image. And as promised, I need a phone. I just need to, if I type in Jason's battle tag. Okay, so up here we've got a button there and an edit field here. And JSON is known as no hero 2104. Press the button. Okay, you'll probably see in the session in the background, you could see it very briefly, some new stuff being downloaded, but here is Jason's hero list. Again, it takes a little while just to catch up with the images, and again we can go through those, see what Jason's wearing. And again, we've got our pop-up tips, of course, that I mentioned before, so we can get information about. It looks great in black with purple on my desktop. Obviously, it's not looking great there when it's projected like that. And there's a whole community of these people. I mean, you can go online and get the battle tags for all sorts of people. And of course, it's not just blokes that do this. Let's have a look at Deemer. Well, I mean, I suppose, who knows? But, you know, there's some fierce-looking ladies out there in the virtual world. Ish. Oh no, that's not. Hold on, he's thinking about it. Hopefully, he's thinking about it. Network is a little bit slow, as we know. She was there earlier. Oh no, stuff's happening. Okay, so she has a character called Willy Fufu, which I found quite amusing, which I thought was worth sharing with you all. But again, we can go through all of her characters like this as well. So that basically is how I've been wasting my time and not going to work, which is why your version 14.1 was late. Which is why your version 15 is probably going to be late. But it goes back to what Gianluigi was saying the other day. I found this, I think, a tremendous amount of fun. It's taught me a lot about how the data binding works, how to do the XAML. And to be brutally frank, it's also found a couple of bugs in the interpreter that have been fixed as a result. So, I mean, it's a win-win-win all round, really. Now, and the other thing that's going on here is no one's asked, but I'll point out anyway. This big purple bar. Oh, no, I won't do it that way. I'll do it this way. Here's a cool thing, and then I'll show you a couple of other cool things, and then we're done. I have this little thing here, which I downloaded from the interwebs, and it's a WPF snooper. Okay, what it allows you to do is it allows you to pick up this little target thing here and drop it over a WPF window. Okay, and you get this window at the top called the zoomer. Okay. Oh, sorry, this is it. Right, okay. And click that into 3D mode. Let's change the background to black. And then what we can do with this is we can move it around, zoom in on it, and somewhere, let me just move this a little bit. Oh, it's gone a little bit. We can change how much it exaggerates the Z order stuff. So we can see exactly how this thing's been built up. And this is why I wanted to show you that some of these bitmaps came from subsections of larger bitmaps, because I wanted to be sure to explain to you why this looked slightly different to what I pretended it did. And this long line here, okay, this long line, this long green thing that you can see sticking out, is actually the XAML code itself that's driving this thing, because this big purple line here is just one of those grid splitters that we saw before. And in here we just have all of there's our canvas that contains all of our buttons. There's our some of our item labels on our buttons for our tools and stuff. But hopefully you can see that this data binding is very powerful. Yes, I mean, I've written all this XAML by hand, and you can get designers to do that. But by the same merit, most of that XAML came via cut and paste. I typed into Google, how do I do such and such? And Google said, you do it like this. And I went Control-C, Control-V, put it in there, maybe tweaked a few names, and it just worked. So it was nice and easy peasy, really. That's the nice thing about XAML. It works with whatever language wants to create the stuff. Now, so that then was the... There's my presentation. Well done. Right, so I said... Right, so that's the presentation done. I did say, a bit longer than 30 minutes ago, to apologise, that there would be a chance to part with some cash. It's an infomercial. I'm only doing this so I can sell stuff. I've got merchandise. Now, so it'd be great if you could help me out. I've got about 80 of these out back. So if anyone's interested in some real art, then I'll be selling these later. If that's not quite your style, if you like it a little bit more, I don't know, au naturel maybe, I've got these as well. So there's about 80 of each of these stuck around the back. So if anybody wants one, do come and see me later, and you can explain them to customs for me. So that's how I waste my time. I hope I haven't wasted too much of yours. I suggest we go to the bar. Thank you very much.